What is up, everyone, and welcome to episode 41 of Pull Up with Miles and Owen. And today we have a very special guest in the house, fellow New York City lifer and a prominent, incredible member of the women's basketball community. She was a member of the Forbes 2024 Under 30 Sports List, and she is the CEO and founder of Moolah Kicks, built by and for women hoopers. Natalie White, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. How's it going?
Wow, thank you for that intro, Owen and Miles. This is exciting. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and to get behind the curtain a little bit, we're super excited about this because this has been like the worst game of like phone tag back and forth that we've been trying to schedule and constantly. It's the summertime. We're all doing things. We're all over the place. Some of us have broken computers, so we've had to reschedule this a few times, but we are really excited to have this conversation because Moolah Kicks, you sent me actually last year. One of the sneakers, and they were so cool, and unfortunately not up in my size, but I think that's a good thing, as that my wife was able to take them, and I'm like, good, here's a women's basketball shoe that is not catering to men, which I think is kind of the point of the entire thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my first question, is just what was your motivation in creating these sneakers?
Well, first of all, I have to apologize that we didn't have your size. We certainly do. We go up to a women's 15.
Okay, so that's probably about where, I don't know what the conversion is, but that's probably about right.
14.
Men's.
You'd be
Okay.
in stick length. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so next time we'll get you a women's 15. Are you a 14, Miles?
I'm a 13, but Allie was very happy about it. She was not.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, we get you a 14 then. It's no worries.
Perfect.
But everything about Moolah, like you mentioned, is specifically for the women's basketball community and specifically for female hoopers. And the mission of the company, it's really centered around elevating, seeing, and celebrating female ballers. And so everything we do, we start with that elevate. And that's about making sure that we are providing premium performance products that will elevate her game because they're biomechanically fit for her. So when female hoopers are wearing men's, unisex, children's sneakers, not only are they more at risk for knee, ankle, and leg injury, but we have these uncomfortabilities in the sneakers that we're so used to as female ballers. So we say, okay, it's normal for shoes to take a month or so to break in. It's normal for the bottom of our feet to burn after we play and to have this huge sense of relief when you take the shoes off. Well, with Moolah, that's how we're elevating performance, is that what it means to have sneakers that are built and fit specifically for the female foot form. It means that there's no break-in, there's no burning. So you can take the shoes out of the box, have a leg up on your competitors because you're ready, practice one, game one. You're not thinking about your feet, you can just focus on your game. Then seeing the women's basketball community, we do that by having this brand be representative and reflective of every single angle of women's basketball, from Courtney Williams in the W at the pro level, CYO players in California, and New York City street ball here. It's that this brand is for every single person that exists in women's basketball. And finally, celebrating women's basketball because this is the only brand that is exclusively focused on this game. We're like how Speedo is focused on swimming. That's what Moolah is for women's basketball. This is all we do. This is all we're focused on, and it allows us to have bring an expertise to the table that can only be achieved through this maniacal focus and closeness to the women's basketball community.
So growing up in New York City, walking into a sporting goods store and maybe seeing a lack of options or things like that, what did you see in this space that made you want to create what you have built with Moolah?
I think, Owen, you don't even notice, which is the sad part. Like when we talk to some girls now, they walk in, there's no options for them in certain stores, right? You walk in, it's either a men's or a children's section, and we don't even think about what we're doing. We're so used to it. And that message is loud. We have women in the W in college, best women in this game, rocking sneakers named after someone else and made for someone else. And that sends a really strong message. And I'd say through the partnership we've had with Dick's Sporting Goods over the last 4 years, we've been honored to change that, right? We came out in 2021 in 140 stores with them and created the first ever women's basketball section. And then in 2022, we were joined in the category by Puma, Adidas, Nike, and Under Armour. And we were able to broaden that section and broaden her selection in those stores. We're now up to 570 stores in just 4 years with Dick's. So it's been, or our 4th year of business, excuse me, and our 6th season with Dick's. So it's been really exciting to change not only like the retail landscape, right, of what these shoe decks look like, but also her experience in store. So that now when she goes in, when you see the women's section, it hits you, oh my God. I've been literally conditioned to going into the men's section. What does that say? Now I can go to a section where I have products specifically for me.
Yeah, I think that that's a conversation that's kind of been a through line in all of these interviews that we do on this podcast is this idea of women's sports being an imprint of men's sports, that this is how men have done things, so this is how things need to go moving forward. And we try to examine that question and say, why is that? Just because this is what was done and this has been done terribly for, the last century, why does this need to just be in that image? And I think that's why like conversations like this, you're right, this is a void that needs to be filled. Women don't need to fit into the mold of these men's sneakers. So I think that that's really awesome what you're doing there. And I wanted to ask specifically about that Dick's Sporting Goods partnership, because like you said, 570 stores, that's amazing. What were some of the biggest challenges that maybe you didn't anticipate in a partnership with such a large company of that size?
I think any of the challenges we've had are just from being a startup. But truthfully, Dick's Sporting Goods took a really big shot on Moolah Kicks a couple of years back, and without them, there would be no women's basketball section as quickly as it's happened, right? So I think the way that they have moved this game forward and this women's basketball movement forward with Moolah and the entire section, it really can't be overemphasized. And I think the opportunity is only going to continue to get bigger. And as for our biggest challenges, it's really any challenge that a small brand would have, or a smaller, corporate size brand would have delivering to a big box retailer. It's like in our first season, it was just me alone. I had to figure out, okay, what's a UPC label? How do you deliver according to EDI compliance, which is essentially the receiving system and the electronic communication system with which they communicate purchase orders and deliveries. So I would say nothing out of the ordinary, but what a huge learning curve if anyone's delivering to a big box retailer for the first time and learning all this stuff for the first time.
It also feels like such a classic story of a startup, kind of showing everyone that there was this void and there is this market for it. And then all of the major established shoe brands fall in line and realize, oh, wait, there's money for us to be made here too. Like this is a massive growing market. And what have you seen from that regard? And has it been satisfying at all, or frustrating even to be like, oh, hey, we were kind of the ones that got this ball rolling and now everyone wants a taste?
Oh, are you kidding? I mean, this is what it's all about. We're competitors at the end of the day, right? Like, we want the section to be bigger because that means more selection for her. We want continued investment from them because it means all of us have to bring our A game every single season. And the women's basketball player deserves for all of us to fight over her dollars, So we're really excited that all these brands have joined the category, and for our player, it just makes the shoes that much better. And the consideration set of what she's going to pick for that season that much bigger. And so for us, it's been like very, very exciting that the section is growing, and it'll continue. Of course, we have every intention to continue to lead this section and continue to grow our product offering for her as well.
You're absolutely a basketball player. Just the competition, the inherent competition that you, because Owen and I, we kind of shy away from that. We're like, oh no, more people are coming to this space. We got to make some room. And you're like, no, bring it. Bring it. We're here for this.
Absolutely. I mean, that's when you started, that's what you're asking for too, right? It's like, if you want to prove we're proving that this market, we're not proving that this market is there for anyone. Don't get me wrong. We're doing it because we care about serving this female hooper. But what are you going to get when you start doing well? You're going to get others joining and others imitating you, of course. And so, we're happy to have them.
I love that. At the top, you mentioned in passing that you've worked with one of our favorite basketball players, Courtney Williams.
Everyone's favorite.
Yeah, we would not be doing our job if we didn't ask you for your favorite Courtney Williams anecdotes, because she is just a joy to watch play basketball, but just as much off the court as on.
Oh my God, she's great. I mean, last night, even against the Mercury, she had a fantastic game. She's been really hot. We're excited for the playoffs. My favorite Courtney anecdote. We have some pretty exciting stuff coming out that we're not able to share yet. And my favorite anecdote is from that. But I think beyond that might be from when I first met Courtney. It was like 2 years ago. She was playing for the Sun. And we sat down to do an interview on the new Paint Shop pack, which is, I mean, these shoes, this is our first shoe we ever came out with. Our spring summer update for the shoe. It was in the spring of 2022. And meeting her and hearing her story, hearing her about how she felt about her footwear, how she was taking months to break them in. And then with Moolah, they were ready out of the box, and seeing how happy she was with that, and like how surprised she was that she could wear a different pair every game. And you'll see she is wearing a new pair. I mean, if not every game, every other game. And I think it really speaks to that no break and no burning, how they're ready out of the box. And so I'd say just that, when I met Courtney and heard about how she felt about the product, and at the time she wasn't a sponsored player yet, and that's part of what informed us. We're like, oh my God, she has to be our first W player. She's the real deal, on the court and off the court.
I can't think of a more perfect ambassador for the shoe. Like, not only does she have the tremendous style, she's got such an infectious personality. She's also someone.
Yeah, she's the best. Are you kidding? She's literally the best. So
she's also transformed her game in Minnesota to become like one of the best point guards in the league after being a shooting guard. I got so much admiration for her whole process and everything. What is the process for you guys in approaching someone like Courtney Williams? Because this is not like a end of the bench, but like this is a bona fide like star of the WNBA. Yeah. How do you sell her on your vision?
Everyone has to try the shoes, and we've had a lot of interest when people put the shoes on and they hear about the brand and they hear about what we're doing. It's really not a sell for women's basketball players. Like, who wouldn't want to be involved? This is the only brand that is exclusively for us, and it's changing the future of women's basketball. It's changing the footwear landscape. It's taking our story and putting it into our own hands. Courtney has equity in the company. It's ownership. It's having a voice in the company, having a voice in what you want to put on your feet, having those shoes molded specifically for you. I mean, it's kind of everything. So I'd say, our approach to players is the exact same, no matter, and we talked about this earlier, but no matter if it's the fifth graders, playing casual AAU basketball, playing in the basement somewhere, if it's a kid who plays a couple times a year in a summer league, top high school players, WNBA players, the street leagues here, the way we talk about it is the exact same, because it's who we are and it's authentic to what we're doing. Try the shoes. try the shoes, they're gonna love them, hear about the brand, they're gonna love it, and then have an opportunity to work with us and contribute to the future that we're trying to create. And it gives a new sense of ownership and importance, to how players are showing up and what they're choosing to wear.
You talked about kind of the pipeline starting from AAU, and I know that you were an AAU hooper, probably playing in some of the same churches and stuff that I remember growing up in around New York City, but that it goes up through middle school, through high school, but also that you've got some college players that are on your website too. The last couple of years, we've seen I guess the power shift, the paradigm shift there, where the players with NIL are able to have some more control over not just who they represent, but that they can make some money, and that who they wear is actually a big part of that too. So what were some of those conversations like for you? Because that was kind of, you were getting into that territory as it was still kind of finding itself. And I think it's still finding itself. It's still trying to figure out what exactly all of that means.
Timing is everything. And when I had just graduated college and started Moolah in 2020, NIL was passed, and the NIL law restriction, whatever, was passed in 2021. So I still knew everybody in the ACC, went to Boston College. I still knew everybody. And this is at a time where like deals were not really regulated, and the compensation, I knew everyone again. So I knew a lot of the players. So we didn't have to like put out crazy dollars, and everyone loved what Moolah was doing. And it was exciting to be involved with the brand and to be able to share about the brand now in a way that folks could, right? Because previously they couldn't make us really endorse any brands because of the schools. So when that was a huge way that we actually got off the ground in those 140 stores, is we came out and had like 40, 50. Now our roster is we've worked with over 80 college athletes, 70 or 80, but at the time we off the bat worked with like 40 to 50 college athletes. And we were definitely one of the first people to do NIL deals, because who's stopping it, right? Like the team is so tight at Moolah. Like it's me calling up some of the women from BC and saying, hey, can you guys put out a post about this? And can you ask, your friends at UNC and Virginia Tech and wherever else? And we just kind of started to work those schools and get people talking about Moolah and posting and figuring out the NIL landscape. And now it's gotten crazy, right? Now it's like, it's a whole different game than it was a couple of years ago, but that's why it's important to stay on the top of things and be young and quick and nimble and like use what you have. So I'd say NIL was huge for us. It still is, of course, but that's really how we got our start.
You alluded to the equity element a little bit earlier as it pertained to Courtney Williams, and I'm curious how intentional and how important that was to you guys, because that, as Miles said earlier, has been another kind of common theme of our podcast is the idea of equity and actually having a voice rather than just being a face for a certain brand or whatever, but actually being able to feel like you're heard in that space. So how important was that in the creation of this company?
So important. Equity and ownership is everything at the end of the day, because that grows in value, right? Or at least your contribution should make that grow in value. So it gives you a sense of ownership, and then lifelong rewards and control. And that's worth a lot more than cash today.
And as it pertains to the specifics of the design, because this is another follow-up I wanted to circle back to, you mentioned the biomechanics. Like what was the research process like, early on, maybe back in 2020, when the ball was getting rolling, in terms of like these specifics, okay, of how do we actually build this shoe?
So the inside of every shoe, there's something called a last. That's the same for a high heel, a flip-flop, a work boot, or basketball sneakers. And essentially what a last is, think about, it's a form, it's almost like a skeleton of a foot. And so in every shoe, high heels included, the last looks like this in high heels, right? It is literally what the inside of the shoe is going to be. And so in the shoe creation process, materials are pulled around that last. It's all heated up in an oven. And then the final step is the last is taken out. I know it's a funny word because but the last step is the last is taken out. And so then what you're left with is on the inside of that form, it's like a mold, right? So then the inside of the shoe is formed to that mold. And all of the basketball shoes, what that means is they're formed for the male foot form. All of those lasts are shaped like a male foot, and that's more than just stick length, right? So if you're looking at a last and you're measuring from heel to toe, that's what we mean when we say it's a women's 7 and a men's 5.5. It's just this length. So you're basically reducing an intricate form that has the ball, certain measurements for the ball, arch, heel, and you're reducing it down to stick length. And that's where, I don't want to say maybe like the trick has come in, but when we talk about it like that, oh, it's a men's 5.5, it's women's 7, it makes it sound like we're talking about a t-shirt, when what we're really talking about is a mouth guard or a helmet, right? Like, it's the same as if a mouth guard, you get one of those cheap ones because you forgot yours, and it's not molded to your mouth, and eventually you're gonna like bite down on it and it'll start to feel fine. You'll cut it with some scissors, it's gonna feel fine. Just like female hoopers take their footbeds out, they put molded footbeds in, they tighten the laces more, they break them in for a month, and then they're like, oh, well, they're fine now. Yeah, but you could also just get a nice one and you could boil it and then you can fit it to your mouth and you'd be happy immediately, you know? So when we were looking at what that form means, what it means to be female fit like that, because it has implications, just like the mouth guard, on injuries and on every other part of your game. We started by interviewing as many people as we could. I mean, I knew nothing, like literally nothing. I was a college senior. And that means I needed to ask a lot of people a lot of things to use 5% of that information. So I would say that's how it always is starting a business, right? Like you work 100 hours and 2 end up having value in the long term. So we interviewed trainers, podiatrists, physical therapists, orthopedic surgeons, like literally anyone we could talk to, looked at desktop research on the differences between the female and the male foot form, because what's interesting is in running, this is already applied. Marathon runners are not running 26 miles in men's shoes. No one would do that because their knees are already hurting. That's crazy. But basketball players not only wear the men's shoes, but they wear them labeled Kyrie and KD on the side. It's insane. So the research for that is known and can be applied. And then we had this big pile of research on the medical side. We also went out to hundreds of women's basketball players. Like I used to just walk around with a QR code at some of the Boston College club tournaments on my phone and have everyone at these club tournaments fill out the polls, talking about how their shoes fit, how they don't, what colors they would want, what they don't. Used to poll all of the high schools and the middle schools nearby. Then we took those big piles of research of what experts said about form and basketball players had about commentary on their shoes. We combined those two things and brought them to the top last manufacturer in the world, Jones and Vining, based out of Brockton, Massachusetts, 20 minutes away from BC. And together in partnership, we started making that inner form that is fit specifically for female hoopers.
This is fascinating and probably something we should have gotten to earlier in the interview, but that you were still in college when you were starting this company and that you were still playing basketball, playing club hoops and in this space, which gave you access, but also kind of a unique position to know the need, to know what was lacking. What was that moment for you when you were like, because I can't imagine being at 21, 22 years old and doing anything that I would still want to pridefully say I'm doing when I'm 26. What was kind of that genesis moment for you when this went from an idea or something you were passionate about to saying, oh, this is something I can actually do? And what was that kind of whole creation like?
The second I realized it, Miles, I started it. Like the second, it was November of my senior year, so November 2019. And I said, screw it. This is what I'm doing full time after graduation. And I'm going to start now. I'm going to leverage all the resources that are now free to me at Boston College, get that research done, right? And leverage everything I have. And I'm going to do this full time at graduation. I took a step back from all the clubs I was in. I actually took a step back on the club team and worked with them just on making the shoe. Like I really focused a lot of my time and attention towards doing what I could while I was still at school. But the reality is, like, once I graduated school, the work I did in 2 weeks, I thought I was working hard when I was at school. Everyone thinks they work hard in college, right? And like 2 weeks after I graduated, the amount of work I did in the first 2 weeks was like more than I did during my entire senior year. So yeah, sure, I like started it in college, but like I think I like thought I was doing a little bit more than I was. And I'd say that's still true, right, Miles? Like the company we were then is not the company we are today. And like that's a beautiful thing and that's a scary thing, right? Having like that growth happen in front of people's eyes. Like this company has gone from 0 to 100 in front of people. We're still not 100. I'd say 0 to 90 and we'll hopefully be 90 forever, right? Because we always need to innovate and get better. But we've grown in front of people. You can scroll back and look at the first Instagram post we did. It's like me in hand screen printed shirts and shorts, like making tie-dye sweatshirts from my parents' basement. Like there's no hiding that, you know, but I think that's something to be proud of because like you see that video of Chapel Roan, I don't know if you guys saw this, singing in the like backyard in 2021, seeing Pink Pony Club, and then you see it 4 years later blow up, and it's like, no, there's beauty in that. Like she's the same person. You work really hard to become an overnight success. And so I'd say the same thing. Like didn't look too pretty in 2021. It didn't look too pretty in 2022, and today it's looking a lot better. And we're pretty now, but the point is that like we're always gonna have those roots, and that's also really, really important to who we are.
I think that's tough sometimes in an audio medium, but I want to just hammer home that these are really, really good looking shoes and that people should go and seek them out because as someone who, Owen will tell you, wears very bright colors all the time, I'm a sucker, especially for the pastels. And I think that that's something that you guys really crush in the sneaker designs. My favorite ones are when you have just a bunch of different colors kind of doing their own thing. How much input do you have in that level of design? Is that all your vision kind of making it onto the sneaker? Is there a team that deals with, I don't know, the math behind what combinations are going to sell, or is it kind of some of everything?
Yeah, we have high school girls vote on everything, and that is how it's decided. So it's a little bit of us analyzing the sales numbers. It's a lot of it of high schoolers voting on stuff that they want to see. And then when they actually see it, confirming that they did mean that when they said it. And then it's us going back and forth and seeing what's going to execute the best, you know? So, okay, the Easter Storm, I mean, that shoe just like killed it. We've had so many shoes that we've been really, really pleased by the results, but all of the ones that have done the best have been the ones with the best. We knew that going into it, right? Like we'd get a crazy amount of people wanting that shoe and then we'd produce it. So it all comes from the women's basketball community. We have them vote on everything we do. And absolutely, you're right. I see in the audio format, you can't see the shoes, but to anyone who's listening, I mean, there's no shoes like Moolah Kicks. It's important to, if you go to Dick's Sporting Goods, pick them off the shelf, try a pair on, see how they feel, then now that you have the context on the business, like I think your mind will just be blown, and you'll be all the more sold on why you have to rock with these sneakers and this brand.
As we finish up here, I'm curious what are goals for you and for the company moving forward? Like, you've already accomplished so much, as we mentioned, in over 500 stores. What are goals moving forward to keep the ball rolling, especially as women's basketball here is having massive boom in viewership in all these metrics that have been steadily rising for so
Yeah.
many years and have now just kind of exploded?
It's to continue to be the brand women's basketball. It is to continue to have more shoes on feet on top talent and on developing talent, and have girls go into the store, and when they're picking out their first shoes ever for their career, and say, my goal is to have, in 10 years, to have a player who bought her very first pair of basketball shoes were Moolah kicks. She never realized, she never lived without a time where there wasn't product made for her, never lived in a time where the WNBA wasn't popular, where players didn't have the star power they have now, and to continue to have Moolah maintain our position as the leader in this category, and continue to get better every single season. And so I'd say that's our goal, have a player who goes all the way through, let's call it like third grade through college, rocking Moolah.
That's beautiful. That's something that Owen and I have talked about before too, is the shift that we've seen the last couple of years in covering the W. When we go to the draft and we talk to a player about who's your favorite basketball player, and as recently as like a year or two ago, it might have been somebody on the men's side, and now we're hearing more and more that it's women, because the spaces are finally, the access is finally there.
Yeah.
Things are created, and I think that that's so much, and that trickles down to, yeah, the merch that you wear, right, and the equipment that you have. Everything should exist for these young hoopers in this space. So Natalie, thank you so much for everything that
Thank you guys.
doing, and yeah, for pulling up with us. This is such a fun conversation.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. And for those listening, go check us out in store or online at moolahkicks.com, and same Moolah Kicks on Instagram and TikTok.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And we'll put all those links everywhere for you guys. And yeah, we'll chat soon. Hopefully we'll catch you in New York here.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, Natalie.